Ever thought about making a podcast? Well, Anchor is the easiest and simplest way to do so. Let me explain. For starters, it's free. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone, laptop, or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on multiple platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and much, much more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need in a podcast in one place. So give it a try. Welcome back, everyone, to the Those Film Nerds podcast. I'm joined today by my co-host, as always, Sam Dierberger. Sam, how are you doing?
How are you doing today, Will?
I'm doing well. It's raining, but I'm doing all right.
Yeah, it's pretty dreary out.
You know, it was yesterday too. Haven't been really able to go outside the past couple days.
Yeah, and I suppose that most of our listeners are local people, based on what we've seen this last week. So, I mean, they're in the same boat as us, most of them, and this week is supposed to be very nice, just 70s and 80s.
The upcoming
sunny.
week. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what are we going to talk about on today's episode, Sam? I'm excited to talk movies today.
First of all, we decided that first thing we're going to talk is some film industry news. Now, I hesitated to do this just because, you know, if someone wants to listen to these episodes in 2 years, like someone gets into the podcast in like 2 years from now,
maybe what I'll do
it a little bit.
What I'll do in the description, Sam, is I'll put when we start talking about our other topic. So in the description, I'll write fast forward to 20 minutes, whatever it is, 15 minutes to skip the news. That's fair. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'll just write it in the description.
I'm just talking like, you know, people, they're going to be like, oh, yes, that was definitely a 2020 kind of podcast to have or whatever. But,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know, we are genuinely interested in film news. So, you know, it should be interesting and fun to talk about. And, you know, you can, if you're listening in the future, you can get an idea of what people thought about these movies
back in 2020. So I have a couple things.
They're classics by now. But.
Yeah. I have a couple things to go through. I know you do. Let's try and keep each point a little shorter. Just run through them quickly. I think I have a few more than you, so I'll do one, you do one, and so on. So for more of the blockbuster side of things, for anyone who is a fan of Star Wars, the director of the next Star Wars movie, which is not any trilogy or anything, it's a standalone movie, will be directed by Taika Waititi from Jojo Rabbit fame and Thor Ragnarok, for any MCU fans out there. Sam, I know you're not, but so the director of
I think Taika Waititi is kind of overrated as it is, so
I don't know. Dude, I think he's a ton of fun. For anyone who hasn't seen Thor Ragnarok, the third one, or Jojo Rabbit.
What we do in the shadows is a lot of fun. It's genuinely funny.
I just think he's an interesting director. So I'm excited to see what he has to do with Star Wars. He's a great writer, actually. He has an Oscar to his name in the writing category.
Yeah.
So he will be... He will be writing and directing this Star Wars movie. Plot is unknown, but I'm excited for that. I'm game for whatever Waititi has to do.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to cast Rebel Wilson as a bounty hunter for comic relief. We'll just love that.
That's the worst part of Jojo Rabbit. Easily, it's not even close. And I like that movie, but we need to stop putting her in movies.
It's dreadful. It's dreadful.
All right. So you hit one.
Mine, I find, you know, the business side of the film industry can be really interesting because obviously it's like any other show business. There's a lot of mechanics and gears behind it, beyond the facade of just, you know, emotion and acting and directing an art piece. So this one is from Screen Rant. It's called Movie Theaters May Be Acquired by Amazon. It says as AMC theaters struggles financially because of the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah,
Amazon is
they're
reportedly
not doing well.
considering buying out the company. So, what I'm interested to know is what would that mean for the movie going experience? Because I'm not sure if it says in the article the market share that AMC theaters has, but it has to be a pretty good amount.
They're one of the big four. I mean, you have like Cinefix. There's a few more, but AMC is definitely the most recognizable. So that will be interesting. We'll see. I have to see how that plays out. But in other AMC news, Universal Pictures decided that during the COVID-19, they would release some of their movies that were going to go to theaters just straight to on demand. And it was really successful, actually. And then they determined by this like trial run type thing that they are going to do that all the time now. Go straight to on demand and in theater. So you can stay at home and buy it for like $20 for the whole family instead of going to theaters, which is also interesting. And then AMC pushed back on that and said, well, we're not going to show any of your movies then, which doesn't make sense to me. Like AMC, you need that money. Like you're already not doing well. You kind of need the money.
Well, yeah. And it's like, why are you picking a fight with Universal? Because
one of the big five studios,
for us, we both hate Disney. So like any studio you're playing other than Disney, we're like, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do a.
Like, why are you?
You go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying, like, it's such a. If you're gonna make a stand like this, make it against Disney.
Yeah.
Like every other production company you turn down is just you becoming more dependent on the mouse, and we really don't like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about Disney at length sometime soon, but in that episode, I'll kind of let the audience know how Disney operates as a company, but we'll leave that at bay right now. So what's your other one? I know you had one more. Then I'll hit a couple more.
Yeah. So this is more of like a personal thing, but this is more personal news for me, even though it has nothing to do with me. Indiana Jones 5. Originally, I remember getting the news in like 2016 that
I was at
Indiana
Applebee's when I saw the news. I remember that.
Applebee's?
I just remember that distinctly. I read the news and I was like, what?
It was so life-changing. It was like 2016. And it was revealed that Indiana Jones 5 would be released in the far, far off future of July 2019.
Which obviously didn't happen.
July 2019. Which didn't happen.
By the way, Spielberg not directing.
And then, so it was pushed back a year, then pushed back another year. Then Spielberg said, for whatever reason, he's not going to direct, and he gave it to James Mangold.
Who I'm a fan of.
Yes. Who, interestingly, is also, I believe, making that movie that we were talking about before we started the podcast with Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan, called Going Electric. So he's also going to be making that in the next few years. So I'll be very excited for two of James Mangold's new projects.
He's talented. I mean, you didn't see Ford v Ferrari, but man, that was a good movie. And I know that I think a lot of people did see that. So I'm excited to see what he has to do.
Yeah, it's pretty diverse. Yeah.
So I have. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have two more movie news, and we can quick go into our main topic of today. Oscar, the Academy Awards this year, maybe a week and a half ago, announced that sound mixing and sound editing are no longer categories, and that best sound is now the category, which I think is good. I mean, they're definitely separate categories, sound editing and mixing. Sound editing, for anyone who doesn't know, is what you hear, and sound mixing is how you hear it, like how loud it is or what side of the theater it is. Or like sounds overlaying on each other. That's sound mixing, and sound editing is what you hear. So they're definitely different, but to the wide audience, they're not different, if that makes sense. Like, nobody really cares when they're watching the Oscar who wins sound mixing and editing other than, like, film nerds. And even I, like, don't really care, you know? Like, I'm like...
I had no idea.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good that... Because I'm on the record as the Oscar ceremony, although I love watching the Oscars, it's way too long. It's like 3.5 hours. Like, we need to shorten it. So it's good that they're reducing the number of Oscars handed out. So now instead of 23, it's 22. Yeah. Yep. Or
now,
no,
my question
24
is,
to 23. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. My question is, wasn't I could be thinking of another category, but wasn't sound originally one category?
Yes.
Like back in the day.
Yeah. It actually just changed recently, or recent enough. It was like 2008 when it became two categories.
Yeah.
So it's good that we're going back to it.
Really, it's just technological advances, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
In producing sound. Yeah.
So more Oscars changes, and that's permanent, by the way. But this next thing for the Oscars is just this year. Any movies? So the Oscars normally works is you have to release into theaters for 2 weeks, I believe, in a certain number of theaters. Mostly in New York, Los Angeles. But this year, due to COVID-19, the Oscars is now just saying if you had a slot sometime this year and you now go straight to on-demand at like Netflix or Amazon Prime or anything like that, then you're good. You still qualify for Oscars as long as you had a slot sometime in the year to qualify. So they're just getting rid of that due to the circumstances, which is good.
Interesting.
And finally, which you hadn't heard about, which I got to tell you, which is super exciting.
Yes, you should have seen my face.
Is a Scarface reboot. Yes, of course. The 1932 and then 1983, now to be 2021, Scarface, which originally starred Al Pacino, who I am on record of not really liking since Godfather Part 2. I think he's kind of as flat as a board and a little annoying. Yeah. That's just me.
I mean, the comparisons to De Niro are completely unfounded. Like, if you're asking who's a better actor, Pacino or De Niro, it's not even close.
It's not even close. I just don't like
Bobby. Yeah.
I just don't like Pacino. So I'm not sure how to feel about this. It's written by the Coen brothers, Sam's favorite directors. They're not directing it, though. It's from the director of Call Me By Your Name, which I'm on record of loving, Luca Guadagnino. I definitely butchered that name, but there's like 15 vowels in his last name, so I'm sorry.
It's ridiculous. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I'm not sure how to feel about this. I don't really like the first one. It's fine. Or Scarface already is a remake. Like, I don't know why people are up in arms like don't wreck this classic. Like, it was already remade and whatever, doesn't matter. But
and it already holds up well. Like, people are still watching. It's not like it's some obscure movie from the 80s that no one cares about.
Yeah, like it's a cult classic.
People worship this movie.
It might. Is it in the AFI Top 100 too? It could be.
It probably is. People love that movie. There are better stories that, because you see a lot of remakes that, maybe they just didn't age very well aesthetically.
Yeah.
But the story really had merits and some of the themes were really good. They like the characters. So that's something you should remake. But Scarface, from what I can tell, holds up real well, right?
I just saw it a couple months ago. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan, but yes, it did hold up well. Like, it didn't age or anything like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So the question would be, because Tony Montana, the main character in Scarface, who Pacino played, is kind of an iconic character. Who would play him, Sam? I think maybe Oscar Isaac.
Maybe Oscar Isaac. We have yet to see real psychotic character from Oscar Isaac.
Yeah,
a little bit in Ex Machina, but not really.
A little bit in Drive with Ryan Gosling in 2011, but again, not really. I don't know. Maybe Diego Luna from Narcos fame.
Diego Luna.
But I don't.
Well, it doesn't. He doesn't have to be. Of Hispanic heritage, I guess, because obviously Pacino is not.
No, he's not.
It could be anyone with kind of an olive complexion, I suppose.
Which is Luna. But I
guess that was the formulation that went into casting Pacino.
I'm almost certain that he's from Cuba, like the character.
Yeah, he is. He's Cuban.
Okay, the description just says an immigrant, so I'm not sure. But that's the last movie news that I have. So I'll just write down the time so I can put in the description of when to fast forward to. But let's get into the main topic of today, and I'll let you introduce it. All
right. So today, here's the thing. Today we're doing what we call the first of what we would call our director retrospectives. Now, directors are interesting people. Sometimes, as is the case for the person we're doing today, sometimes they write their own story and then they direct it, and it's really kind of like a whole piece of work because they see their vision for the story played out on the screen visually. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just handed a script by the studio and they go make it and they do a really good job, and that should be commended as well. But, we're really fascinated by directors here. So we figured we would start with, two of our favorite directors. And this is Will's favorite director. He's certainly up there for me just because I've seen all of his movies, and, he's certainly a very talented guy. So today we'll be doing Quentin Tarantino and just kind of going through his filmography and talking about what kind of reoccurring themes, reoccurring images, what he's interested in cinema-wise, I guess.
Sure. So I kind of had an outline. I kind of let's just talk about, to start, kind of his style, how he does it, that type of thing. Then let's go through the years, like film by film. Yep. And then let's kind of just do a really quick ranking.
Sure.
So Tarantino obviously is one of the more recognizable directors. I'm sure everyone's probably seen at least one of his movies at some time or another. And I think even for the masses, he's recognizable. Like Quentin Tarantino, oh yeah, he's made something that I recognize.
Yeah, it's definitely a recognizable name.
I think that's just because of how unique and different he is. Like he's not typical, I guess. Like he does things out of order and different. Give me your general thoughts on Tarantino.
So the thing about Tarantino is it's easy. You see a lot of young, testosterone-filled young men who love his movies. Like, we're in the perfect age bracket for being like absolute Tarantino fanboys, and in fact, Will is.
Yeah. I have my Tarantino shirt on right now because I knew we were doing this episode.
Oh, he does.
Written,
oh my God.
Written and directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. So, his movies are. The only consistency is that he uses a lot of heavy dialogue, lots of meandering dialogue that seems to go nowhere, and also a whole lot of just brutal, unflinching violence.
Yeah, and absolutely bonkers off the wall. Yeah.
Yes. Like absurd, like to the level that in most cases you'll be laughing because it's just so absurd.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so it's easy for a lot of young men to become Tarantino fanboys without, seeing all of his work, or even when they've seen something like, Pulp Fiction or Inglourious Basterds, they don't really appreciate a lot of the story crafting that goes into it. They're just there for the gritty violence and to feel like they're, they're really cool or something. But, Tarantino is a very talented storyteller.
Yeah.
Very talented dialogue writer.
I think he's a better writer than director.
What's that?
I think he's a better writer than director.
Yeah, for sure. And he has written a lot of movies that he didn't direct.
Yes, he has. So just some general thoughts from me too on how he directs. I think I said it in the last episode, but how he writes a movie is more like how he writes a novel, or how a novel could be written. He goes all over the place, and it's not really centric or focused, but it'll get the story told type of thing. And I think that's how he writes, but how he directs is even more interesting. Some directors, in fact, most directors will not really be on set. They'll be in a room off. Well, they're still on set, but like in a separate room, watching what is being recorded or shot, and then giving feedback from that room. Where Tarantino is right behind the camera. He's not the cinematographer, but he's right next to the camera, telling the actors what he wants them to do, which I think is really important, and which he thinks is important too, because it's hard to how can you put your own style and flavor into something where you're in a different room.
Yeah,
and it is interesting because most of the time he's known for great acting and clever dialogue, and that honestly comes from he was an actor before a writer-director. He went to acting class and acting school, just kind of as a side gig, not like actual schooling. And would just do weird scenes for his acting teacher, I guess, and for his fellow actors in the room. And they'd just get crazier and crazier until the point where he was like, you know what? I think I'm going to try my hand at writing. And this is when he was young, too. I mean, he got into the game when he was pretty young.
Yeah. And there's that famous quote. We were going to put it on the back of a T-shirt we were going to make for our film club at school. But Tarantino once said, "I didn't go to film school. I went to films."
Which he did, yeah.
He did, and that's the other thing to mention about him is he is an absolute cinephile in the truest sense of the word, and he's an absolute purist about cinema, how it's displayed, how you watch movies.
Absolutely.
Like he is not a streaming guy by any stretch of the imagination.
No, he's not.
He absolutely hates Netflix.
We will get into that a little later with a few of his films where he's kind of traditional.
Yes. So that's another thing to mention, and it is comforting as someone who likes movies to have someone behind the helm of a movie that loves movies and has seen all the classics and everything else. Like he has a lot of influences, and it shows.
Yeah,
because he's just seen such a variety of movies.
I think who you can pick up, because he's so unique that it's hard to say like this is who he idolized, but I think you can pick up a lot from Sergio Leone.
Yep.
Kind of wide takes and long takes. That tells me Sergio.
A lot of 70s Scorsese too.
Yeah.
I know he said multiple times that Taxi Driver is his favorite movie of all time.
So there's definitely hints of other directors, but gosh, he's one of the most original directors out there. So it's hard to knock him for that. I mean, obviously, you can take inspiration from anything as well, but
yeah.
So let's just kind of go through his filmography.
All right.
He got started in 1992 with a little movie called Reservoir Dogs, and it's interesting. Reservoir Dogs was Tarantino's directorial debut, quite one at that, and it was supposed to just be made with Tarantino and a few of his buddies for like $15,000. He was just going to make this project, and then he gave the script to someone who knew an actor by the name of Harvey Keitel, who starred in the movie and is one of the bigger actors out there. And Harvey Keitel loved the script and decided to fund it himself for like $100,000. So he just pitched a little bit more money and then got a bunch of his buddies to star in the movie as well. So it's just kind of interesting, the backstory on how it was made. And Tarantino still starred in it as well.
He got Buscemi, which is a pretty big deal.
Tim Roth. Michael Madsen.
Did Tim Roth really have a career before this?
Just a little.
Yeah.
And he's really the star of the movie, Tim Roth, actually. Maybe.
Yeah, he is.
Keitel's in it quite a bit, though. And this is one of my first Tarantino movies, maybe my second one that I ever saw.
Yeah.
And this was definitely an interesting one when I was like 10 years old and saw this, because it's horribly, horribly violent for about 10 minutes.
Yes.
and it might be difficult to stomach for some people. So if you're the faint of stomach, I would not say to watch this movie.
Yeah.
So
But I will say, because it is his debut, it is one of I would argue probably his most conventional movie in terms of storytelling and how the story's just driven. The characters are a little more conventional, and that's understandable because it's his debut, like I said.
Yeah, he played it safer.
You don't want to weird people out right away.
Yep.
From there, he definitely goes into different territories. He has a lot more creative freedom, I think.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, but I'm absolutely enamored by Reservoir Dogs. I think it's one of his best movies.
I think Reservoir Dogs is just so interesting because it's about a robbery between these maybe seven or eight guys that they commit, but you never see the robbery. We know that something bad happens, something goes wrong during the robbery, and then basically we just see the aftermath of that. Most of which is in a warehouse. So it's just kind of interesting. It's like a different take on the crime genre because you don't actually see the crime. You just see the aftermath of it.
And plus that opening scene is just so classic Tarantino because how long is that opening scene? Like 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, where they're
just, these unnamed guys. These guys, we don't know their names other than colors, right? So there's like a Mr. Green, Mr. Brown, Mr. Red,
Mr. Orange. Yeah.
Yes. So these guys are sitting around in a diner and just talking about random stuff like you tip the waitress, why do you tip? And they're just like talking mobster style back and forth.
Yeah.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the movie. But it is just a very well written vignette. So you have to appreciate it
because it's really like, what do a bunch of mobsters and gangsters talk about? Well, it's not like they talk about killing people and robbing people all the time. They have normal conversations too. They're talking about tipping and what they're eating and things like that. They're not, which makes it just so clever and interesting because it's not really what you'd expect. But then once you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I suppose. Why would they be talking about murdering someone when they're just in this diner? They're just talking about the diner, They're not talking about, which is so funny to me.
Yeah, they're human beings too.
Yeah, which is it's so like hilariously ironic, I guess, and yeah, it's just so clever. And this movie kind of starts the Tarantino verse, where Michael Madsen's character Vic Vega, and this will kind of I guess transition into his second movie, is related to a different character inside of another movie, which is just interesting. But let's just talk about Reservoir Dogs for another minute here, and then we'll hit a quick break, and then we'll move on. But what do you think the best part of Reservoir Dogs is? What's your favorite part?
I honestly love when which color is he?
He's Mr. Pink. He's Mr. Pink because he's all upset because he has to be Mr. Pink.
That's right. So
the naming scene is my favorite. My favorite scene, to be honest.
Yes.
When they're all like, "Well, I want to be Mr. Black." They're like, "No, you can't."
I want to be Mr. Black. No, you can't be.
It's so funny.
So when Pink is in the back seat towards the beginning of the movie, right? When he's in the back seat, because I don't want to give too much stuff away.
Of course.
But he's in the back seat of a car, and the way he yells at the driver is absolutely hysterical. Like, Buscemi has a long history. Look at Fargo of just like yelling in cars. Like, he's the number one go-to actor for that kind of thing. So he's like in the back seat with like just blood all over him, just like get going. Like, oh yeah. I think that's my favorite scene, honestly.
Buscemi is great. I think my favorite scene has to be the naming scene when they first all get together and they're naming each other and arguing because they have to have color names so that if one of them gets caught, they can't rat each other out. They can't say like it's Darren, he did it.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know each other's
Daring.
names. Like if you were to like say it's Mr. Blonde, he did it. Well, Mr. Blonde is nobody, you know. So that's just another
Mr.
clever writing. That's Michael Madsen's character.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Reservoir Dogs. We're gonna hit a quick break and come right back. Thanks for listening.
All right, and we're back. So the thing about Tarantino is that he is pretty diverse. He's able to do a little little side projects for a little bit of capital and funding for his passion project pictures, I guess. But after Reservoir Dogs, he started getting some notoriety in Hollywood. So he did some side work. He wrote a film called True Romance, which came out in 1993 after Reservoir Dogs.
We should note that Reservoir Dogs was 1992. Just for I don't think we said that.
Yeah, 1992. So, and then 1994, he wrote the story for Natural Born Killers. He wasn't involved in the screenplay writing. So that's something to check out. Will and I have not seen any of these.
I haven't seen them. No.
These kind of Tarantino bastard childs, I guess you would say. But 1996, From Dusk Till Dawn, he wrote that movie, which I have not seen. I just know of the Selma Hayek Python scene.
Yeah, I actually have seen it, and he stars in it as well, or he acts.
Oh, he does.
He is in it.
Is it good?
It is pretty good. It's odd, but yeah, it's George Clooney and Tarantino just having a good time. Another Harvey Keitel movie as well. It's a good time.
Okay. And then 2005, Sin City, he was an assistant director, or I guess like a co-director on that one, which I have not seen either.
Neither have I.
That was directed with his good buddy Robert Rodriguez, who's kind of like his BFF.
That's Robert Rodriguez also directed From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. So we thought we would get that out of the way because we don't consider that like Tarantino canon.
Yes.
For us, we like Tarantino movies that are written, directed by him, just because, you know, like I said earlier, we like seeing a director's full vision being played out, and
yes.
We're very interested in seeing a person who makes the decisions for the storyline, also making all the directorial decisions. We think is really interesting. So,
and it's worth noting before
so moving on then.
Before Reservoir Dogs, just real quick, he did direct a short film called My Best Friend's Birthday. Although like nobody's seen it, and he doesn't talk about it ever really. So it's just worth mentioning that he did make a short film before that, just to kind of get into the game. That was 1987, right. So that was a number of years before Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, he was still young then. He probably he was super young.
Yeah. So let's get into the second film in his filmography.
Yes.
And I'll let you start this one off.
Yeah.
Because I got some thoughts about this movie.
Yeah, I know you hate this movie.
Yeah.
It's just
not a fan. No.
Yeah.
It's Pulp Fiction, ladies and gentlemen. 1994's Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
And I went into it last episode as well, but Pulp Fiction is just so different than any other movie I'd ever seen. And it was one of my first Tarantino's. It might have been my third, actually, after Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, interesting.
Third or fourth, maybe. And I think, like, oh gosh, we could go into specific scenes, but the episode would be too long for me to go into everything.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think this is just a writing achievement for me, really. Like, the dialogue in this movie is so good. And
yes.
I don't think it's really ever been done again. Like, the style of Pulp Fiction, of back and forth, like, it starts at the end, which is weird. Yeah. I don't think it's ever been done again. I mean, some people have tried it. Maybe even Tarantino has tried it, and we'll try and get into that. But it hasn't been mimicked, is what it comes down to. And it's really a story about nothing, I guess. It's just kind of a day in the life, or a couple days in the life of these characters, which just makes it even more interesting. where there isn't really like a plot point going from A to B. It's, I guess you kind of go from A to B, but like you go over the mountain and then through another tunnel, and then like you go everywhere. You're not going straight from A to B. It's everywhere. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, the way this movie is told is so unlike anything I had seen previously. It's a lot like if you had a binder of just like a normal narrative story, just going all the way through, and
I already
it
know
had,
you're going
you know, an ensemble cast and a bunch of different characters and everything. And then imagine that binder was opened, and then the wind came, and all the papers just flew all over, and they just collected them, put them into a stack. You would get like Pulp Fiction, the Pulp Fiction screenplay.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing really makes sense until like the very end. And even then, if you're paying attention, if you're not paying attention, you're not really going to get it. I mean, we had Will knows we had a humorous moment last fall. We showed Pulp Fiction to one of our mutual friends, and I was there just to see him watch Pulp Fiction. He was so confused.
It is a confusing movie, but if you pay attention and watch it maybe 2 or 3 times, you'll get it. This is a movie that I tell people, if you're going to watch it, you have to put your phone in a different room. Like if you touch your phone, you're done. Might as well stop the movie now.
Yes. Yeah. And the other hilarious thing was this friend was engaged the whole time. Like we made sure he was off his phone. But at the end, he had no idea what Quentin Tarantino looked like. So by the end, we were like, all right, which character in there was Quentin? He guessed Ving Rhames.
He did guess Marcellus, didn't he? Which is too funny. Like you couldn't have been further off.
I know.
So who?
So the interesting. Yes. Was your question who's my favorite character?
Yeah, who is your favorite character?
Because honestly, I know his character gets a lot of hate, but Tarantino's character in this movie is absolutely phenomenal.
Yes, he is. It's not my favorite character, but yeah, it's like, good.
I want to say Harvey Keitel, the Wolf.
He's so cool. The Wolf is so cool.
The Wolf is so cool. What did you say? It's like that's like a 50-minute drive.
So basically, he has to go. Yeah, I'll just say he has to clean something up, and it's in a house. It's in a house a long ways away, and it's like 7 a.m, and he's at a party, which is already awesome.
It's almost like a funeral, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
I don't. We never know. But basically, he's like, "All right, it's up in this part of the hills," and he's like, "That's an hour drive." Or Jimmy Tarantino's character is like, "That's an hour drive." He's like, "All right, I'll be there in 15." No, wait, that's a 45 minute. Yeah, it's 45-minute drive, and he's like, "I'll be there in 15." And then he pulls around the corner, and it says like 14 minutes and 56 seconds later.
He just pulls up in this awesome car, and the entire movie is just believable enough.
Yeah.
So that you can revel in its absurdity. You could be like, "Oh my god, on a weird day, this could actually happen." like the characters seem real enough so that you can relate, but they're not the everyday person.
Absolutely not. I think my favorite character is Mia Wallace. I just find her so funny, and
not Jules.
The thing with Jules is actually, yeah, he's probably my favorite character. Who am I kidding?
Yeah.
He's so entertaining and funny. I wish he were in more of it.
Yeah.
Mia's really close though. She's a close second.
Yeah, she's complex. She's the most complex character.
I think Uma Thurman steals this movie though. Like her character isn't my favorite, sure. That belongs to Jules, but she is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
The diner scene. Oh man.
That is such her lifestyle. Her lifestyle as we see it at the beginning of this movie is just so terrifying.
Yeah. Gosh.
Like she needs to do a line of cocaine just to go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Like it's just It's so bizarre.
And if this movie taught me one thing when I was 11 years old, it's how to do heroin and cocaine.
Yeah, don't snort the heroin.
You can't snort heroin, ladies and gentlemen.
Never do that.
You'll overdose. Yeah.
You have to go visit the drug dealer.
Yeah.
Lance. You'll have to go visit Lance.
Lance, I mean, there's so many good characters. Lance is hilarious. The little black book.
We're nerding out about this. But the other thing to mention that's really interesting is John Travolta's career was absolutely dying.
It was in the dirt.
Pulp Fiction.
Tarantino called him up and said, "Hey, let's do this," and rejuvenated his career.
It did.
I'm a big Pulp Fiction fan. I'm looking at my Pulp Fiction poster right now. I'm looking at my Pulp Fiction hydro flask that I had my cousin paint. I'm showing it to Sam right now.
It's got Mia Wallace with the iconic cigarette and stocking.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'll read the opening.
Yeah.
The opening to the movie. It says pulp, noun, 1, a soft, moist, shapeless mass of matter. 2, a book containing lurid subject matter and being characteristically printed on rough, unfinished paper. That's what the movie opens with, and you're just thinking like, what is this movie gonna be?
Yeah, I love how he titles the movie. Like, the title of the movie is a genre. Like, it's not. It has nothing to do with the movie other than it's like genrenizing it, I guess.
Yeah,
that's a word.
So Pulp Fiction, we could talk about it forever, but let's move on to the next one.
Yes.
And next was 1997's Jackie Brown. And I think this is Tarantino's. I'll just start off by saying I love every single one of his movies, but I think this is kind of his dark horse. Like, it's oddly funny. I know you're not a huge fan of it.
I'm not, no.
And this is his attempt, as I was saying earlier, to remake Pulp Fiction a little bit. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely.
He's trying to capture that magic.
When I saw it, I thought it was just weak tea Pulp Fiction. Like, it's like if someone wrote Pulp Fiction, but with just boring characters. Like, I don't find any character in Jackie Brown to be that interesting.
Which is weird because he's known for his fun characters. Yeah,
he is. And, like, you know, he got a lot of A-listers for this movie.
De Niro, Samuel Jackson.
He got Bridget Fonda, Michael Keaton, Robert De Niro, who is so underused in this movie. The entire runtime, Robert De Niro sits in someone's living room.
Yeah, that's all he does. I mean, he goes out to a shopping mall at one point, but that's all he does.
He's so underused. It's
Man,
like,
I forget Keats is in this.
Don't make him sit in the living room for the entire runtime.
No, that's how you utilize. That's how you utilize Bob.
Like, what? What are you doing? So I'm not a fan of this one. I think all the characters are super boring and not that interesting. And the story isn't that intriguing.
So you kind of said this is like a weak Pulp Fiction, but I think a weak Pulp Fiction is still really good, in my opinion. I think the end really comes together nicely when our protagonist kind of wins, I'll say. She does win, Jackie Brown.
Yeah.
I really like this movie. I haven't seen it. I think this is my second ever Tarantino movie, maybe. I don't know. I kind of get them jumbled.
Did you watch which Tarantino movie did you watch first?
Kill Bill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I saw this one, Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, within like a 1 month time span. So I guess they get jumbled. But I saw those all kind of right in order.
Yeah.
So they kind of get.
I guess unless you have more thoughts about Jackie Brown, which
we can move on.
I don't. I just think it's kind of almost parodic Tarantino, like self-parody almost.
Sure. Like, so we difference a little bit on. I like Jackie Brown. If you're gonna watch all Tarantino movies, you would say you should still watch it though, right?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't watch it again unless I was doing like a Tarantino binge. and
Yeah.
just watching his movies all the way through.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely not.
This one is
It's
long,
fine.
actually. This one
It's
is.
not a bad movie.
It's longer than it should be as well.
Yes, definitely.
Basically, there's a bunch of money and a bunch of people are trying to get it. Is Jackie Brown?
Yeah.
So let's move on to Kill Bill, and we're gonna group them. So Tarantino, I guess technically has 10 movies released to his name, director wise.
Yeah.
But he considers Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2 to be one movie, as most people do. And the only reason it's not one movie is the studios that were producing it basically said, hey, Quentin, we can't produce a 4.5-hour movie. And he was like, okay, I'll make it 2. Which is just kind of funny. But
we can't market it.
They came out in back-to-back years. And it's interesting because they're both... they work on their own, kind of. But obviously they're better back to back, but they both work relatively well.
Yeah.
And naturally, as 8-year-olds do, they watch this movie, and this is their favorite movie when they're 8. I mean, who doesn't like to see Uma Thurman chop up the crazy 88s when they're 7.5 years old?
Oh, my God. Yeah, it's, thing about Kill Bill is I don't get it. Like, I don't understand why people love this movie so much. Obviously, I can see it's a good piece of filmmaking, but the suspension of disbelief is too much for me. The fact that Tarantino, obviously, like we said before, Tarantino is a cinephile, and he loves these old grindhouse kind of, I guess, violent samurai pictures.
Yeah,
he's very inspired by Kurosawa.
Yeah, definitely Akira Kurosawa is seen in there.
Yeah, he wanted to make something like that, but he set it in like America in the modern day, like in the 21st century,
early 2000s, which
it just doesn't work for me. Like, the suspension of disbelief is too much.
Well, I
just can't appreciate it as well as most people do.
And that's what you have to do with these two movies is you have to ignore some things in order to get past it. And I just think it's a ton of fun. This is probably maybe one of Tarantino's most fun movies to watch, in my opinion. Yeah. The first one's relatively short too. It's sub 2 hours. I think it's definitely worth a watch for anyone who's into the neo-Western genre or the kill a bunch of people genre.
Yeah, and I should say I'm not really a fan of like grindhousey movies as it is. So for me, if there's like 2 dials on Tarantino, it's like really good storytelling / dialogue and violence. Like, those are the only 2 dials that Tarantino has. He turns the violence up to 11 with this movie, and he puts like the dialogue and storytelling to like a 3. So for me, it's not as satisfying.
Sure, that's fair. This movie is interesting because I guess it is an action movie, and most action movies, for people who don't know, are filmed twice from each side of the room. Believe it or not, so you film once from over here, and then you film the other time from over there, just so you can get multiple camera angles. But this movie is weird because Tarantino filmed it where a character would do. Let's just say Uma Thurman, her character, the bride, who is actually unnamed, which is interesting. She's just known as the bride until the second one we figure out her name.
Yeah.
But it's filmed where, let's just say, anyone in the room would do like 3 or 4 steps, and then they would pause. The actors would pause, and then they'd remove the camera if they needed to, and then they do 3 or 4 more steps, and then pause, and then do 3 or 4 more steps. So that way, continuity issues such as like fake blood on clothing or something like that, or a chair flipped over, whatever, is set for the next one. Whereas if you do the original, like the typical method of each side of the room, you have the issue of, well, now there's blood on her shoulder where there wasn't before. Now we have to
reset everything.
Exactly. Which is just interesting. I think it's kind of a cool way of doing it. And I'm sure more directors have done it since, but Tarantino kind of was one of the first to do that, which is interesting to me.
I hadn't heard that before. I didn't know that about Kill Bill.
Yeah, it's definitely It's interesting.
It doesn't change my opinion of the movie a whole lot, but
it's just kind of an interesting fact, I guess.
Something new.
But yeah, Kill Bill. I think they're both great. I know you're definitely lower on them than I am, but
yeah, I think it's for me.
so much fun.
It's Tarantino's worst. Like I'm not gonna revisit it. I think what it comes down to is like I said, it's not what I look for in Tarantino.
That's fair.
When I'm watching a Tarantino movie, I'm not there for the violence or the satisfaction of the action, I guess.
Yeah.
I like the dialogue. I like the characters.
The club,
really well fleshed out.
That's fine. That's fair. Which one do you like?
Markets, I suppose.
Which one do you like better? Or are they about the same for you?
I thought one was better slightly, just because I liked the mystery of who is the bride. And I love that whole scene. It's kind of a weird scene to pick, but I love that whole scene of the hospital. You know, when she's in the hospital, and the orderly is basically becomes a pimp essentially.
I think one is better as well. I like one better.
Yeah. And then she ends up just like destroying those two guys.
Yeah, she kills a lot of people.
And then there's that very Tarantino foot fetish scene where she's in the back of the van and like, trying to move her toes.
Absolutely. So going, are we done with Kill Bill? Are you going to move on?
We're done.
Okay.
I got nothing else to say.
So going on to the next one, 2007's Death Proof.
Yes.
Which I know you're a relatively large fan of.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Death Proof. I just saw it for the first time probably a month ago. It was the last Tarantino movie I needed to see. Just because I had always heard that Death Proof was by far his weakest. And I'm like, I don't think anything can be worse than Kill Bill. And I was right. So thing about Death Proof is that you got obviously Kurt Russell playing a psychopath.
So entertaining.
Which I really hadn't seen before. And his character, Stuntman Mike, is just so
Stuntman Mike is so fun. I'm looking
fun to watch. And we should mention too that this movie is actually harkens back to Tarantino's BFF, Robert Rodriguez.
Yes.
They decided that they were going to make a double feature picture together.
Back to when movies were great. You know, that's what Tarantino likes.
Yes. Cinephile Tarantino decided, okay, we're each going to make a movie. Robert makes a movie. I make a movie. And then we're going to release them as a double feature. But the other thing about this project is that it looks like a movie. Well, besides the setting, the movie aesthetically looks like a movie that came out 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
He uses real film. There's a lot of moments in the movie where it's like awkward cut, but it's clearly intentional. And then there's some he adds some film reel,
there's burns in it.
Yeah.
It's just how it's made to look.
It feels like you're watching it at a theater.
Yeah.
No matter where you are.
It's cool.
It's on my laptop in my room. It's like, wow. So it's very immersive.
Yeah. I love Death Proof. Death Proof is great.
Death Proof is great. And it's kind of this straight, the movie paces really well just because it's two stories and they're only really connected by Stuntman Mike.
Yep.
And it's just boom, boom. And it goes super quick. The action is really, grindhousey but I like it because the characters are super interesting.
Well,
I loved what's her name? What's the New Zealand stunt woman?
Oh shoot.
I'm gonna find her. Zoe Bell.
Yeah.
Zoe Bell. I instantly fell in love with her.
She's in a lot of Tarantino movies, actually.
Yeah, she plays. Actually, ironically, she plays Kurt Russell's wife in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
She does.
So, yeah, we'll get into that. But she's the best character for me in this movie, because she's so spunky.
Yeah.
And that New Zealand accent, man. But she instantly is like, we're gonna get revenge on this psycho stuntman driver.
On Stuntman Mike.
Stuntman Mike. It's so interesting.
I think
so much fun.
For Tarantino's 10th, I told you this, but we need Kurt Russell and Tarantino together.
Yes.
Kurt Russell's so good. This quote near the beginning of the movie, in the first part, I think I like the first part a little bit better.
Yeah, the first part is fun.
I don't know, though. It's tough.
The aesthetic, oh my God, the aesthetic of that restaurant /
yeah, that
bar.
the restaurant bar scene or the sequence, I guess, is great.
Yeah. In the summer in Texas, like all these people are in there, like in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah.
And you don't know, like, they're just talking like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
The other thing that's hilarious is Kurt Russell is a teetotaler. Like, he gets like, what does he get? Like some club soda and a bunch of nachos. Like, that's all he's getting at this bar. And Tarantino plays the bartender. Yep. So that's really fun.
Yeah, Death Proof is definitely interesting. I think it's definitely considered Tarantino's worst, but it's hard to say worst when I like them all. But
yeah,
Death Proof is
controversially, I think this is like his 4th best movie.
That is a hot take.
It's very hot, but I love it. I think it's one of his most fun.
And have you seen Planet Terror, the double feature portion?
No, I didn't want to bother with that.
Okay.
I know I haven't seen a single Robert Rodriguez movie just because he made one of the Spy Kids, and I'm like, stay away from that.
I don't want to associate with him. That's funny.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a Robert Rodriguez retrospective in the future.
His movies are a little much for me. I like Planet Terror, but
yeah,
and I like From Dusk Till Dawn, but most of them I don't know. That's Death Proof. Let's quick do half of Inglourious Basterds before we take an extra break.
Sure.
In 2009, Tarantino came out with. A lot of people have this at number 1 for him. I know it's ridiculous to me, but and it was originally titled, interestingly enough, Inglourious Basterds take place in World War II, and it was originally titled Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France. Can you imagine that being the title?
Oh, Tarantino will get in such a fight with the studios over it.
Yeah. So this is probably his movie. Like we were saying, fun characters. This movie has some fun characters.
Yes.
Like Brad Pitt is hilarious. Oh my gosh. Christoph Waltz is phenomenal. Like so good. So creepy.
He's so brilliant as being he's so creepy and charming all at once.
Yeah, I mean,
like Christoph Waltz. The thing about him is he's so effortlessly just charming and wonderful, and yet he plays like a Nazi colonel in this movie. It's so
but he's still like charismatic and awesome. Like,
yeah,
like he's a terrible person, but like part of me is like, well, I kind of want him to win, but not really because he's a Nazi. But like, and he deservingly won Best Supporting Actor for his work here as.
Yes.
Colonel Hans Landa. So good.
What an interesting Hans. And the thing I got to mention about this movie, which I really, really respect about Tarantino, is he's not afraid to use subtitles. Like he has no problem.
He doesn't. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And you know, we're big subtitle guys. I think, even besides the, I guess. Fame of Parasite that came in over the last year, we've always thought that, you know, if you're going to tell a story authentically, use subtitles and use the authentic language. Like we don't like redoing.
You see a movie that's like
that wouldn't be realistic.
Like that's made in Japan and it's Japanese people and they're speaking English and I'm like, come on.
Yeah,
it's a little bit like just
right?
do it in Japan. Just do it in Japanese if you're going to do that.
Right. We can read subtitles.
Yeah.
We can read.
Yeah.
You know,
whatever.
But the nice thing about this movie is there's a whole lot of English, a whole lot of German, a whole lot of French that's used in the movie.
And a little bit of Italian.
And a little bit of Italian. That's right.
We're just going to take a quick break here. Just 1 second.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everyone. 3. Yep.
All right. So the point I was trying to make is like, what's brilliant about this movie is Tarantino is not afraid to have full-on long conversations, long dialogue pieces in French or German and just put the English subtitles on. And in that way, it's very realistic. Like, Nazis who are talking to each other are not going to be speaking English. They're going to be speaking German.
Yeah.
Like,
you're right. And even when they're at the theater, she speaks French. Wow, I was about to say she speaks France. She speaks French for the most part. You know, it's
France.
I like it in that manner where it feels authentic. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Which I know it's hard for some people to get over, but it's definitely worth.
But it makes it so much more immersive.
Yeah, agreed.
You feel like you're actually in Nazi-occupied France and not a Hollywood studio pretending to be Nazi-occupied France.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Inglourious Bastards is kind of it'll probably be hard for some people to watch just because this one's also kind of all over the board. Like, we're in a bar, now we're in a theater, then we're, it's kind of everywhere. But it's so gosh darn entertaining that like Brad Pitt is so funny and so charismatic and oddly terrible, but like, you're just like, well, I guess they have it coming. He's all about the Nazi scalps.
The Nazi scalps.
And you got to collect them. So basically, Brad Pitt and his team, they're Jewish. They're all Jews, and they hate Nazis, and they just want to kill them all. So basically, every time they kill a Nazi, and they do call them Nazis, they scalp them. Yep. And
obviously.
Does he want like 300 scalps out of each one of his men?
Yeah.
It's like a ridiculous number.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
So he scalps them, and they're all about killing Nazis. And I think my favorite scene in this movie is when they're kind of near that bridge tunnel thing, and he's like interrogating the Nazis that they captured and asking where the other Germans are. And he asked the colonel to start, and the guy's like banging the bat. They beat him to death with a baseball bat. I mean, it's like it's so
Bear Jew.
Yeah,
Bear Jew.
He's like hitting the baseball bat on the concrete wall, like you can't see him yet, and it's just terrifying. Like, what would you do in that case? Like, just pee your pants and then die? I mean, like, I
guess, yeah.
And then the next guy they interrogate, he's like, you best tell, if you want another sauerkraut sandwich, you best tell me where them Germans are.
Sandwich.
He just points to the map, and it's so funny. And
oh man, yeah. This movie, I think it's slightly overrated in that people do consider it Tarantino's masterpiece.
Yeah.
As we discussed before,
let's go into that a little bit.
I don't think anything he's made has even come close to Pulp Fiction. Like, that's just, it's so bizarre that someone would consider this, because it's an entertaining movie. The dialogue is great. A lot of the action is really good, but it's not like, it is too bizarre to be considered Tarantino's best.
Yeah,
because it takes place in World War II. Like, and it definitely has a signature kind of humor and visuals to it. So yeah, it's a little too bizarre to be considered his best, I think.
I'll agree with that. And I kind of go back and forth with this movie on my list and the next one we'll talk about. Let's just kind of transition into that, actually.
Yeah.
2012's Django Unchained.
Yeah.
Which I love Django Unchained.
Yes.
I go back and forth between this one and Inglourious Bastards, of which is my favorite, or which is over which in my ranking. But Django Unchained is so good for me. And another Christoph Waltz performance that is worth noting. Similar to his performance. Well, actually not similar at all.
No, not similar at all.
But again, won Best Supporting Actor for it.
Yeah, as he should have.
And it's interesting because Tarantino came to him and he wanted him to play the Leonardo DiCaprio character. And Christoph Waltz said, "No, I will not play another villain. I don't want to." And Tarantino was like,
playing a Nazi colonel, Quentin. Yeah.
And Tarantino was like, "Okay, let me see what I can do." And then he wrote in this other, because he wanted Waltz on the project.
Yeah.
He wrote this other character in for him, which turned out to be a great idea.
And that's the other thing to mention is the thing about Tarantino is apparently if he wants to in his movie, he will send you like a handwritten letter.
And he's never been declined.
Like, would you like to be in my movie? And apparently they were corresponding back and forth, Quentin and Christoph Waltz. And by the end, they were like they were writing in German to each other. So like Christoph Waltz said something like, "Of course, good sir," in German, like when Tarantino finally offered him the character of Dr. Schultz. So, yeah. And this movie is just so much fun. Right? Like,
yes. It is about slavery, for anyone who is unaware. Django, portrayed by Jamie Foxx, arguably his best performance. I think Ray is probably better. His performance as Ray Charles.
Yeah, I need to see Ray. Yeah.
Oh, it's great, dude. So yeah, Jamie Foxx is so fun in this movie, but yet like it has its moments of like it's like fun dialogue, but it has its moments of like really down and really depressing moments as well. This is about slavery. I mean, obviously it'll be tough. And this is Leonardo DiCaprio.
It's a lot to take on. Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio is so hard. Like he is excellent in this movie, but it's so hard to watch. God. He's a horrible person. He that dinner scene though, I mean, he sometimes steals the show.
Yeah.
He's hard to watch though. So,
yeah, is this Tarantino or is this DiCaprio's only villain that he's ever played?
Could be. It might be.
I don't think he's really played a villain in other movies, and he's absolutely brilliant at it. Like,
absolutely.
Oh my god. There's that. Obviously, there's that very famous scene where he is yelling at dinner when he's having dinner with Django and Dr. Schultz.
Yeah.
And at one point in real life, Leonardo slams his hand on the table, gets it brutally cut by this like broken glass, right? And it's like he just keeps going and uses that as fuel. Like you can tell DiCaprio is actually in pain. Like it was a bad cut.
And he's screaming and yelling, and at one point he's like wiping the blood on his eyes. He's like wiping the blood on his hand on one of his slaves' face, like just dehumanizing them. It, like he
imagine how much Tarantino loved that? He just loves that.
Supposedly on set when that was happening, someone was like gonna go rush to help Leo, and then Tarantino stopped them. And then when the scene was over, everyone just started cheering because DiCaprio just freaking nailed it.
Just keeps going. Oh my god! And then Samuel L. Jackson is kind of, I guess, underrated in this movie because he's actually playing a side character.
Yeah, and he's also kind of a bad guy.
Yeah, he's kind of a bad guy. He's lovable. There is this very strange relationship that Tarantino writes where Leonardo and Samuel are like, obviously Samuel plays his slave, but it's like they have a very like Samuel is very loyal to DiCaprio.
Yeah, there's like a trust.
It's bizarre, but you know, I would imagine those relationships did exist, you know, rarely in the deep South back then, but yeah, who knows? So that's really fun, and the characters in this movie are very well developed.
Yeah, I mean Django, the main character, is so good. It's such a fun character, and it's kind of a story about redemption too. So moving on to Tarantino is, I don't know, is this like It's The Hateful Eight. I don't know how to feel about this movie. I really like it, but it's something that if it was just shortened a little bit, it'd be so much better.
Yeah, there's like 3 different cuts of this movie.
It's 188 minutes, which means over 3 hours. If it were 2:20, 2 hours 20 minutes, oh, it'd be so much better.
Well, there was a cut I saw that was like, I think when I saw it, it was 158 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that's interesting about it is Netflix, for some reason, there was some deal where Netflix got distribution rights after the theater run, obviously. And Tarantino was not happy about that. And what they did was they took the 188-minute movie and then they divided it into 4 and made it like a mini series.
I had not heard that.
You know, just goes to show how the mob has attention spans of 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? It's like sit down and watch a 3-hour movie. Like just do it, you know. So there's that.
Well, and
other than that, I did like this movie.
I do too. It's so like mysterious. You're never sure what's going on until the way end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just very different from what he normally does.
The big thing for this movie that's important for me is the aspect of isolation. I love movies that have any kind of isolated setting, right?
Yeah.
Where these characters are just free to be alone with each other and like really go at it. Like just their personalities clash.
Yeah, we should mention it's like 1880s or something like that, and they're in a log cabin, and they're snowed in basically.
Yep. And they're all very contrary characters to each other.
So stuff goes down, we'll just say.
Stuff goes down.
And this movie is interesting because Tarantino, this is the movie where Disney screwed Tarantino, where Tarantino wanted this movie to be displayed in his favorite theater growing up in Hollywood.
Yep.
And the theater wouldn't do it because Star Wars The Force Awakens was coming out.
Yep.
And Disney basically said, we won't show another movie in your theater of Disney unless you play Star Wars The Force Awakens here. And no fault of the theater really, because if Disney's going to push that on you, I mean, you kind of have to. Like, Disney are the money-making movies. We actually need to make money, so I guess we have to. But I don't know. I think it's upsetting for Tarantino because that's all he wanted was for this movie to be displayed there.
Right. And you can watch this interview in full. There's a little clip from the Howard Stern show from like 2015 where it was still going on, and you can see that Tarantino is very angry about it.
Yeah, he's upset. Sure.
And he's like, I just want it to be played at this movie theater, this one movie theater. It's very important to me. And this is another one where Tarantino really lets his Sergio Leone fanboy out, and it's like, you know, shot on real film. The thing is very long, sprawling, shot on location. So that's where he's like, yeah, I really, I think of all of his movies, this might be one of his more passionate projects. Like you can tell this is really about the homage to other people.
Yeah, for sure.
Other filmmakers.
And this one's considered to be weaker, but I think it's still quite strong.
I think it's better than a lot of people give it credit for.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
The dialogue is very good. The dialogue is some of Tarantino's best.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So transitioning into his most recent and last project, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just came out last summer. And this is maybe one of his most fun movies to watch. It's so immersive. It's so entertaining. Like, if this movie, it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. If it were 4 hours but kept up the same fun level and pacing, I'd be in.
Yep.
Like, I just want to
absolutely.
I just want to hang out with Brad Pitt, hang out with Leonardo DiCaprio, hang out with Cliff Booth and Rick Dalton. Like, those characters are just so fun to be around and so fun to watch on screen.
And it's so immersive, right? Like,
yeah.
The way it was shot, you felt like you were in 1969 Los Angeles.
Well, and the Brad Pitt driving scene is so good when he's driving down like the main street in Hollywood, because they actually rebuilt that street to get it to look like it was 1969 Hollywood, which is quite commendable.
Yeah.
And I love this movie.
Practical effects, all practical aesthetics.
Yeah.
God, and Leonardo is so.
This is one of his best performances.
One of his best, you know. At one point, he plays a kind of obviously down on his luck, old kind of television actor who never really made it into the movie business straight up in Hollywood. So, but at one point he's obviously playing his character, and then his character is playing a character. So
it's so
just
deep.
all kinds of, it's so layered, right?
Yeah.
It's so,
and it's so funny that Leonardo DiCaprio is playing like a bad actor. Like, in the movie, he's like, "Ah, crap! What line? Like, what's my line?" And it's like, it's so funny to me. Like, DiCaprio, one of the greatest actors of all time, just like terrible actor, and like he doesn't think he cuts it anymore, and like he's going into his trailer and like throwing crap and
alcohol.
Yeah,
like,
it's so funny,
completely out of his own. And you know, and it's. Yeah, I think it's really is Tarantino's second best movie. The other thing I will mention about it is, someone said this on Letterboxd. One of the reviews, they said like, it's weird to see a Tarantino movie where there's no like driving undercurrent of revenge. Like revenge is a huge thing for Tarantino. It drives virtually all of his movies except for Hollywood when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. Maybe. Nope, it's all of them. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this movie is more like it's just kind of into the lives of these people.
Maybe not Reservoir Dogs, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Not so much,
but yeah, you're right. He doesn't have any sort of revenge or anything. It's more just like proving yourself, kind of.
Yeah. You just kind of see the lives of these characters, and then you kind of see what happens to them and how they interact.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, it's just so much fun to hang out with them. Like, it's all over the board. Like, there's no real like specific plots. I guess maybe the Charles Manson thing, but
yeah, but that was that's like expected by the audience, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all familiar with the Manson family and everything, but the rest of it is pretty just random.
Yeah, you're right.
Like. How life is, I guess. So I really love this movie.
Yeah, let's go into our ranking then. If you have your list pulled up, let's just quick do this. We'll just start from 9. So again, we're just combining Kill Bill 1 and 2 into one movie. So my number 9 is Death Proof. How about yours? We'll just quick go through those. We don't have to give any reviews or anything.
My number 9 is Kill Bill. I'm not a fan.
My number 8 is The Hateful Eight.
And my number 8 is Jackie Brown, actually.
That would be my number 7, actually.
There you go. And my number 7 is The Hateful Eight.
Okay, so we just flip-flopped there. 6 for me is Kill Bill.
6 for me is actually, this is controversial, actually Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah, mine is, Inglourious is 5 for me. Yeah, it's lower. It's at the midpoint.
And then my 5 is Django, because Django is a good movie, but it's not. I think the top 4 are better.
Yeah,
I guess is how it works.
And that's Django is my 4. I didn't realize how we're one off on every single one. I switch back and forth between Inglourious Basterds and Django quite a bit, but I recently put Django at 4. Yeah, I just find it more fun. I guess
Django is just a little bit better.
Yeah. Your number 4?
4 for me is Death Proof. Obviously, this is a very hot take. We discussed it before, but
hey, that's fair.
I've set my reasons.
Yeah,
I rest my case. So,
number 3 for me is Reservoir Dogs. Very strong start.
That is the same for me.
Okay, I think our top 3 are the same then. Then Hollywood for me is number 2.
Yep, Hollywood for me as well.
And then a landslide at number 1 is Pulp Fiction.
Obviously. Yeah, it's really not close.
Yeah.
Anyone who tells you that even if you haven't seen a single Tarantino movie and someone says, oh, Inglourious Basterds is his best, just call them out and say, if you think anything's better than Pulp Fiction, then you're insane.
It's
Small amount.
objectively his best movie.
Yes.
I won't understand anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was fun talking some Tarantino. I mean, he's obviously an auteur, as we like to say, and I'm excited for his 10th. But let's get to some recommends. Do you have a recommend in mind, or I can go first?
Yeah. So my recommend this week is a miniseries that ESPN has been producing. I know in the opening credits they co-produce it with Netflix, so I'm thinking that it'll get a Netflix release after the premieres. It's a 10-part series, and parts 9 and 10 premiere tonight. It's called The Last Dance, and it's centered on Michael Jordan and the 1998 Chicago Bulls and their last championship of that dynasty. But it doesn't just focus on that year. It goes into the history of how Jordan came to the team, how they built the dynasty, and it's not, even if you're not a basketball fan, it's still a fascinating watch just for the human drama that goes into it.
Yeah.
There's so much just incredible footage of Jordan and Scottie Pippen and
the Worm
and Dennis Rodman and the Worm just going back and forth in the locker room. The reoccurring joke is they absolutely hate their general manager. And Jordan will just make fun of him openly. And it solidified the case in my mind that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. Like it's not even a question now because I've been watching this retroactively.
Yeah, that's a good recommend. And I can say it will be on Netflix too.
It will be on Netflix.
Yeah, it'll. I think it's after these two on tonight, which is Sunday right now when we're recording. I think it'll be out within the month. I'm pretty sure on Netflix, so you can binge it all, and they're all about an hour. Yeah. They're all an hour?
Yeah, around there. But it's super engaging for a documentary series.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out.
The Last Dance.
The Last Dance.
So my recommend is a music album that I've been listening to quite a bit recently from Bastards of Soul called Spinnin'. They're an R&B and soul band, and this album just came out, I think, in February. Maybe March, but I've been listening to a lot. There's 10 songs on the album. It's more like jazz and soul, so if you're into that kind of thing, I definitely recommend it. Honestly, I don't think there's any skips on this album either. Like there are 10 songs, and they're all solid. They're quite strong.
Yeah, I think we're both big album guys. Like the art form of an album has kind of gone away.
Yeah, I'll agree.
I collect vinyl, and it's albums are kind of a big thing for me, and I like neo soul and what those guys are doing. I like Leon Bridges and people like that, so that'd be really interesting to check out.
So Bastards of Soul, and the new album is Spinnin'. So that's my recommend. Let's Sam, you want to shout out your Letterboxd username?
Yeah, my Letterboxd username is sjdierberger, and we'll drop that in the description.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show description as well. And mine is Will Spalding. Again, check that in the show description as well, and everything else. Find us at Those Film Nerds on Instagram, and at Gmail for thosefilmnerds@gmail.com, and definitely shoot us an email or direct message on Instagram, and we'll shout you out on the show. Sam, any last words?
Yeah, definitely. And not just even like a shout out. Just let us know your hot takes. If you want to yell at me for putting Death Proof at number 4,
yeah, give us your Tarantino list as well.
Someone email into the show. We want to get in contact. Maybe even have someone on if they want to talk about something they're passionate about movie wise.
So email us anything about the show, any hot takes, or your own Tarantino ranking as well for what you have seen. If you haven't seen them all, still send us in the 5 or 6 that you have seen, or 3, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be all for today. Definitely check us out on all those social media platforms, and we'll see you next time. So, bye.
All right. See you later.